I survived 100 days in Minecraft Pocket Edition, and this is what I was able to achieve. I kickstarted day 1 by punching a tree and immediately began the search of iron in some of the shallow caves. I also raided a nearby village for some food and also for some extra iron. And this is where I want to build my starter house. On day 2, I explored around the mountain looking for some exposed iron and spent the rest of the day making a wheat farm. After disposing some intruders on day 3, I began working on some animal farm, and the remaining day was consumed trying to find sugarcane around the spawn, but unfortunately I could not find any. So on day 4, I crafted a set of new tools and went on an adventure to explore the world, and by the end of the day I found myself a jungle temple which contained my first armor trim. But at this point I realized I forgot my bed back home. So I spent the night of day 4 running looking for a place to stay. Luckily I found a village not that far away. On day 5, I raided the village for everything they have. Don't worry, they don't mind any of this. After that, I got back on the road and found another village and did the same there. I finally found a mangrove swamp on day 6, but my inventory was full so I could not farm any. So I have to return home. But we will come back here because we are using a lot of mud and mangrove in my starter base. On my way back home, I came across another village. After cleaning the village on day 7, I spent the whole day trying to make my way back home. I also found a dark oak forest on the route, so now we have access to every overworld wood type. After finally reaching back to the camp on day 8, I clean up my inventory and start working on a mine entrance. I continue working on the mine on day 9, although I took a small break to store my first iron pickaxe and craft new ones. I'm thinking I'll protect all of my first pickaxes and use them in some sort of build in the future. I found my first diamonds on day 10, that without reaching Y level 54, and it was a vein of 5, so we can craft both a pickaxe and an enchanting table. I continued working on the mines and did a little strip mining until all of my pickaxes broke, but before that could happen I came across an ancient city, and instead of getting scared by the thought of spawning a warden, I decided to take a peek in some of the nearby chests and got not 1 but 2 diamond holes. I spent the whole day 11 farming Skulk for experience, and it turned out Skulk is a great way to get experience early game. Day 12 I set my first enchanting setup and did some base enchantment. Unfortunately I did not get anything interesting, so I was back at the ancient city to get some more experience. Got back to level 30 on day 13 and enchanted my first diamond pickaxe and got fortune 2. Not the best, but will do for now. I decided not to stop enchanting at this point, so I again returned to the city to grind more experience. I repeated the same process on day 14 and by the end I have a pretty good set of diamond tools. So now I can finally start working on my starter base. I kickstarted day 15 by doing some light terraforming around the area where the starter base is going to be. From there I went out looking for moss to start working on the base itself. I finally arrived at the lush cave by the start of day 16 and spent the whole day collecting moss and some of these spore blossom. I was back at the base by day 17 and built a stone outline of the starter base. I spent the whole day 18 collecting dirt, and day 19 was spent on placing the freshly collected dirt. I took a break from terraforming on day 20 and lit the newly made mob spawner while being chased by zombies. I also did some farming and finally built this sweet little composting machine. Day 21 I decided to return to the mangrove swamp I found earlier and farm mud and mangrove wood. On my way there I came across this weird looking nether portal, but it did not contain anything interesting. And by the end of the day I was back at the swamp and start chopping down some trees. The tree chopping continued on day 22. And guess what? Nothing interesting happened. Day 23 was also a full day of deforestation, and again, nothing interesting happened. I started day 24 by collecting around 9 stacks of mud, and the remaining day was spent farming some more mangrove. By the next day, I have enough resources for the house, so I decided to return. On my way back, I came across this amazing aqua cave, and by the end of the day, I was back at the spawn crafting some mud blocks. On day 26, I mined stone for a whole day. I'm not going to use a lot of stone on the house, but I will still need a whole lot of stone during terraforming, so I collected as much as I can. Day 27 was really short because it was thunderstorming, so I was not able to do a lot of work that day. On day 28, I finally started working on the house, starting with a mud block path. I also moved the chest and animals which might come in the way. I started working on the boulder which is going to surround the path on day 29. I did not have any plans whatsoever about this build, and it was not looking good by the end of the day. On day 30, I decided to remove all the previous work and completely redo the boulder, and this time I did like the build. I spent the remaining day 30 doing some more terraforming. The terraforming continued on day 31, this time connecting the floating platform to the ground. I concluded the terraforming on day 32, although some areas of the platform are still floating, but they are a problem for future me. And I also started collecting resources for the starter house on the same day. I kept collecting resources on day 33, this time farming oak from a nearby forest. I also light up the area underneath the base. I started day 34 by collecting wheat and then farm moss for the roof of the build. I'm almost done with collecting resources on day 35. Last thing we need being bee nest, so I spent the whole day trying to find beehives in the wild. I finally start working on the house itself on day 36, but I quickly realized I do not have dark oak for some minute detail, so I spend some time collecting it. I continue working on the base day 37, this time working on the front as well as adding a lot of small details, and by the end I was almost done with the front. I completed the front in the morning of day 38 and started working on the roof. I'm using moss as the main roof blocks with mangrove trims. I think both colors complement each other nicely. I began working on the back on day 39. The back is not as detailed as the front, so I was able to complete it in a single day. I was also able to start working on the side as well. I carried on working on the side on day 40. This side has a lot more details than the front and the back, but I was able to complete it in a single day, which was great. Day 41, I finally started working on the roof, and by the end, I was done with the first part of the house. I took a break from building on day 42 and did some bamboo farming. After that, I added mangrove planks underneath the trapdoors so it doesn't look weird when the trapdoors are not loaded. I was all out of spruce on day 43, so I expanded the platform where I grew spruce trees and farmed for the remainder of the day. I was feeling a little lonely on day 45, so I tamed a donkey as well as a horse to keep me company. I don't have any ideas what I'm going to name them, so please leave some suggestion on the comments. After I was done playing with the horse, I did work on the path a little bit and connected it properly to the main entrance. I kicked off day 45 by started working on the front of the base. This is the side which I will see the most, so I spent extra time to make sure it looks perfect. On day 46, I redid some details and continued working on the frame of the build. I began day 47 by adding the outline of the roof. Afterward, I continued adding details around the front. I resumed working on the roof on day 48. I'm using the same roof pattern as the first part so both of them can blend in properly. I also outlined the area where I'm going to add a giant chimney. On day 49, I added the final details on the roof. I also added these cool wind shutters on the wall to make it a little less flat, and by the end of the day, I was done with the front of the build. When I reached our halfway point on day 50, I finally started working on a circular dome sort of area, and I made quite a lot of progress for a single day. On day 51, I fixed some problems with the shape of the build. From there, I took a small break from building to craft some blue concrete to add a little color variant on the build. And by the end, I started working on the roof. It was raining on day 52, but I continued working on the roof and was done with it by the end of the day. I started working on the chimney on day 53. Although it was a fairly simple part, it uses a lot of different blocks and I have to do a lot of back and forth between the storage and the build. So I continue working on the chimney on day 54 and added the finishing touches by the sunset. On day 55, I added some final details to the front of the house and farm spruce to complete the back. I began day 56 by collecting some stone. Afterward, I started working on the back. It's not going to be as detailed as the front, but it should be an improvement from a giant hole. I continue working on the back on day 57, and I was almost done with the roof, but then this happened. The death itself was not a problem because I can respawn. but losing around 29 levels, which is going to be a pain to regain. But I pushed through the feeling and continued building. And by the end of day 58, I was completely done with the exterior of my starter base. I celebrated this by clearing all the bamboos I have been farming on day 59. And I also got rid of the platform where I used to farm these giant spruce trees. On day 60, I finally started working on the interiors of the build. And unlike outside, I did not plan a thing about the insides. So I was freehanding it, hoping it might look good. On day 61, I began working on the storage room. Because of the weird shape of the build, it took way long to figure out what I want to do with this area. So work on the storage continued on day 62. And by the end, I was able to complete the area where I will have the chest. I was running low on spruce on day 63. So I did spend some time restocking, and the remaining day was me trying to separate rooms from each other. After getting rid of the wall zombies on day 64, I continued the project of dividing the structures into different rooms. I began day 65 by adding some chests inside the storage, so I could begin moving in. But I got distracted trying to figure out where I want to put the enchanter. I decided the giant chimney should be the perfect place to set the enchanter. On day 66, I did some more spruce farming to craft more chests. I also began working on my bedroom, which was looking great by the sunset. I collected a bunch of random blocks to decorate the interiors on day 67, and worked long night completing the whole dome side of the base. On day 68, I completed the enchanting room. And I also removed the bee farm from where I was getting all my decorative beehives. On day 69, I mined some cobblestone and start working on the final room. I don't have any plans for this part of the base, so for now I will use this as a place to smell stuffs. Afterward, I composted anything I could find to get bone meal, so I could farm some azaleas on day 70 to build custom trees around the house. These small trees are extremely easy to build and add a pop-up life around the build. I was done with the structure on day 71, so I started working on the surrounding, starting with a waterfall flowing from the mountain, making a small stream of water going from the side of the house. I completed the shape of the stream on day 72 and spent the remaining day fixing any problems and adding in water. On day 73, I realized I have been living out of bread and potatoes all this time, and I'm running out of it. So I spent the whole day running around killing wild animals for some food. And by the end, I have gathered a decent amount. I kick-started day 74 by cooking the freshly collected meat. From there, I returned to the stone mine to collect resources to build a boulder around the house. I began day 75 by smelting the cobblestone into stone, so I could texture the rocks properly. I began working on the boulders from the waterfall and then spread them evenly throughout the stream. On day 76, I added bunch of slabs on the boulders to add a bit more depth and shape to them and make the boulders feel much more natural. I started day 77 by adding another custom tree. Afterwards, some more boulders, and I also began working on texturing the giant rock at the front of the house, which I was able to finish the next day. I concluded day 78 by extending the path a little more and finally freeing my inventory so that I could farm oak leaves on day 79. I'm going to build a small oak tree right next to the house so that it could feel a bit more alive. I started working on the tree by day 80 and spent the whole day trying to get the shape right. I added the finishing touches to the tree on day 81 and built another one of those small trees. At this point, I started feeling the base coming alive with all these small details. On day 82, I began working on a crop field which I have been planning since the start of the build, and it will be similar to almost everything that I build in this episode, just for aesthetics. I planted the final crops on day 83 and spent the remaining day clearing my chest from the items that I don't need and prepare for the next project, which I began on day 84. Now that we are in the final days, I want to spend some days trying to get enchanted diamond tools and armor. My current diamond tools are almost dead, and my pickaxe only have fortune 2, so I'm looking forward to replace it. And I managed to get 14 diamonds by the end of the day. I did another full day of diamond mining. Unfortunately, my luck ran out and I could not find any. But I mined into this geode from where I get some of these amethyst crystals, which I used to decorate the house a bit more on day 86. I also rerolled the enchantment until I got fortune 3 on the list, and spent the rest of the day farming Skulk in the ancient city. I started day 87 by enchanting my new diamond pickaxe and replacing my old one. Afterward, I cooked some food and began looking for copper. You see, the only reason I want fortune 3 is to maximize copper drop from our ore. which I can smell to get ton of experience to enchant my tools. On day 88, I travel a bit further from the base looking for dripstone caves because they spawn copper much more frequently than normal caves. And I managed to spot one which was decent size by the end of the day. I have collected enough copper by the end of day 89, so I decided to return. But I got distracted by this skeleton spawner. If I had found it earlier, I might have built a farm out of it. But it's too late now. On day 90, I got distracted more by every copper ore I see on my way back home. I also found bunch of cool location to build in the future. I finally got back to the base on day 91 and immediately started making the smelting setup and began waiting for the copper to smelt. On day 92, I decided not to AFK but finish some of the details around the base. So I picked some flowers from the nearby meadow and planted them all around the base. Afterward, I began moving items from the chest monsters to the storage. I finished moving in on day 93 and played with the horse for the rest of the day. Day 94 was much more productive because I did bit more diamond mining and got 23 diamonds in a single day, enough to craft all the diamond items I need. Copper was almost done smelting on day 95, so I rerolled the enchantment to get better enchants and played around looking for things I could do while waiting for copper to cook. I began day 96 by decorating the water stream with drip leaves and other greeneries. After that, the copper was done smelting, so I spent the remaining day enchanting the tools. Unfortunately, it was not enough experience to enchant all of my tools, so I spent another day in the ancient city farming skull. I enchanted the final pieces on day 98. After that, I began looking for iron in my strip mines that I might have left while I was looking for diamond to craft an anvil. I kickstarted day 99 by crafting an anvil and combining and fixing my diamond gear. Afterward, I grabbed some bone meal and started spreading grass around the base. And with that, I am on day 100. I was not able to build a netherite beacon or the biggest Minecraft build ever, but I'm happy with what I was able to achieve and build. Initially, I planned to kill the dragon by the end of this, but it will have to wait for now. And thanks for watching.